Manufacturing output volumes beat market expectations, growing 2.5% year-on-year in October after a revised 1.7% fall in September. This was unexpected as industrial strike action, which escalated through September and well into October, not only affected mining output but also the manufacturing industry. Let's take a look at how the manufacturers are faring in South Africa. Coenraad Bezuidenhout, Executive Director of the Manufacturing Circle, with me in studio. Coenraad, thank you so much for your time. So there we go, a lot better than expected. Were you surprised by the 2.5% year-on-year gain?
Yeah, me and probably every other economist. Well, I'm not an economist, but every economist seems to be just as surprised as I was in the strength of some of the figures that have come through. There's a couple of sectors that have led the growth: wood, paper, pulp, packaging, chemicals. But we've also seen that there are certain sectors which are faring not as great. Steel being one of them, food and beverages being the other.
When it comes to kind of the star performers, if you could call them that, in October, are there any sectors which have been laggards and we're seeing now a rebound coming through? You mentioned the likes of wood and paper products, plastic products, rubber, and of course we talked about those type of products being under pressure recently.
Oh, look, there's been precious little time to sort of analyze what's going on, because the figures are quite surprising, and we'll have to see. Perhaps there'll be some revisions. We also think that there may be some lagging effects. You know, it takes some time to take stuff out of the earth and get it onto the market. There may be some lagging effects as far as that's concerned. Employment's a lagging factor, but we have seen it impact definitely as far as the weak performance of the food and beverage sector is concerned.
I mean, just looking at the Q3 employment report, no jobs created in the manufacturing sector in Q3. What's taking place when it comes to the job side of the picture with manufacturers?
Well, the expectation is that over the next year or two, we will probably see a small shrinkage before we will see expansion again. But at the moment, the curve is flattened. But it's volatile. It's not going up or down. It's just hovering around a certain point, around the 1.7 million mark. Within
the manufacturers, where will the losses be centered around? Which types of manufacturers, which specific ones?
Well, at the moment, the steel industry is undergoing huge pressure. We're also seeing that structural glass, automotive glass, and plastics is certainly some of the sectors that are under huge amount of pressure. Also small electrical components, and that pressure emanates particularly from cheap and illegal imports coming into the country, unfairly incentivized imports coming into the country.
I mean, what is the dialogue like with government right now when it comes to helping them understand the situation South African manufacturers are facing right now when it comes to being able to compete with cheap imports?
Well, look, we don't have a problem in communicating with the executive, with the ministers and government, particularly the Minister of Trade and Industry, which is very supportive of manufacturing, also economic development, and the Minister of Finance. But obviously, there's a big policy setting conference coming up in December, the elective conference of the ANC, where unfortunately, even though it can play a very important role, policy takes somewhat of a background, and who's going to be the new leadership takes the forefront. But we have lobbied the ANC intensively, especially around what is needed for manufacturing in terms of the political space that needs to be created for instance, monetary policy to be reviewed, for instance, trade policy to be reviewed. So what are you calling
for on the monetary policy front when you're looking at a review there?
Well, we are not against inflation targeting, but we think along with inflation targeting, one should certainly look at the currency band to try and promote the stability of the currency. You will have to boost reserves, but that's part of putting resources down on the productive side of the economy, and then a number of other policy tools to try and promote that stability.
Okay, if it's not monetary policy that's going to change, you say that you have tried to have a discussion or dialogue with government ahead of Mangaung. What else have you put on the table in terms of creating jobs, creating reindustrialization in the manufacturing sector, given the fact, of course, we have got all these plans on the table already from government?
Well, look, we do a lot of technical work on the trade front because there is a lot of problems in that regard, but there is also political work that needs to be done as far as trade is concerned. And there, for instance, for some of our bigger trading partners such as China and Brazil has not seen the type of proactive stance in trade negotiations that they have been displaying.
Yeah.
And we've asked the Mangaung Conference to go, especially the Economic Transformation Committee, to go and create that political space for the ministers to be able to be more assertive in that regard. Then as far as electricity is concerned, which has huge impacts on manufacturing, we've had a very productive meeting with Eskom in the last week, but we've also asked...
What does a productive meeting with Eskom mean?
Well, we have obviously spoken about their forthcoming proposals, but also about some of the limitations that they face and areas where we can cooperate to ensure, from at least as far as we are concerned, to try and promote a greater degree of policy coherence and coordination in government to make it easier for both of us to do what we're supposed to do without the one impacting upon the other. And there, for instance, we are looking at, and we've had these discussions and have received a favorable reception, but looking at perhaps having some sort of industrial policy intervention to provide relief for manufacturers as far as electricity prices are concerned.
Well, Coenraad, thank you so much. Good to see that you have that dialogue going with Eskom. Thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Coenraad Bezuidenhout, Executive Director of the Manufacturing Circle.